to start it, and we're going to go. And I'm going to start by asking you a question and messing up every single thing on this. Oh my goodness, I messed up everything. All right, I just want to kind of use this. I want to use something.
That's a Presbyterian hymn book right there.
Yeah, here we go. All right, now we're good. All right, so we're here today.
I respond.
Yeah, we're here today to talk about Vietnam because some young people don't know about Vietnam.
Look at me when you're talking.
Yeah, sorry. We're here today to talk about Vietnam because even members of my family don't know what it is, and I want you to give me a story. I want you to tell me the story. So, whenever you got to Vietnam, where were you? How old were you? And where did you go?
Okay, I was when I got to Vietnam, I was 21 years old. Mm-hmm. Okay, March the 19th, 1969. My brother had been over there before as an infantryman, but he told me, you're going to join, you're not going to get drafted because of what they went through. And once you get over there, then you realize. So I arrived there in March of 69, and I was assigned to headquarters company 5th and 12th, 199th Light Infantry Brigade.
Uh-huh.
And as time went on, Leroy Doster, I was the company clerk. Okay. Leroy Doster, I was training under him, and we were the last brigade main base up Highway 1. So in other words, everything in front of us and all around us was Viet Cong territory. We got rocketed every single solitary day. I mean, there's no issues about it because the fuel dumps, so forth and so on. And we did not have a paper shredder, so we had to burn every single solitary thing we had.
Why did you have to burn everything?
Numbers. You did not want the numbers, even though we had Chu Hoys who were Viet Cong turned,
open arms.
Yeah, turned to the good side. You had to burn. You couldn't leave any records because we had to turn in morning reports every morning to main headquarters companies. Because first of all, you got to keep up with everybody. Mm-hmm. So one day I was at the burn pen. And I went over there, and I had a long pole just trying to stir things up. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, ah! I backed up. And I said, what is that? I raised it up. It was a cream-colored satchel. In that satchel was 3 baseball grenades and a block of C4 explosive. You can cook on C4. You can light a cigarette off of it, whatever you want to do, but any explosion and you're gone to Hades. So I jumped back and ran 40-yard dash to the orderly room and called the demolition team, or I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today, all of them.
So do you, was those burn pits the best thing? Do you think they were the smartest thing for us to do? Because a lot of people say that stuff that went in the burn pits hurt people who burned them too, you know?
Well, as I said, you didn't have a shredder, and you could not let, even though we were in a foreign country in war, well, a conflict, the Vietnam conflict was never established a war.
Yeah.
You could not let numbers, orders, and anything else get out here. You're talking 1969 when they first put a man on the moon. Mm-hmm. And prior to that was the liaisons who went in there working the place, and see, our brigade main base was like a small village. My brother was there in 66 to 67, and with the Big Red 1, and a lot of that stuff was built. And it was just like going into a little community. But when you're sitting on the last brigade main base, you're an open target.
Mm-hmm. And so, at your base, what was it like with other Americans at the base? Like, was it like cards every Friday night and a movie, or was it?
We had movies. Back over towards the middle of the brigade main base, we set up movies there and could watch them. We had Armed Forces Vietnam Radio, blessing to the skies, and plus we were like a terminal. When we got stuff there, we had to take it out to forward base. And it went up every day. There was no ifs, ands, buts. You had to take supplies to Fort. Basically, they couldn't get anything. Go ahead.
No, that's what I was wondering about. The logistical challenges of working in Vietnam is just, it's so many thousands of miles away, and it was every day, like you said, every day. You mentioned going between bases, between trucks and helos between bases. What was that like in a foreign land?
You take your life in your own hands. Every truck that went out of the brigade main base had to have a shotgun rider. And I basically rode every day as a shotgun rider. One day we went across a little bridge, and I was pow, 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 pow. So you just turn around with the M16, you unload it because you don't know what's going on. And you could not let the little kids run up to your truck when you went through a VC village, a Vietnam village, whatever, because you didn't know what they had in their hands and would put on your truck. One of the last days I was there, Top is the first sergeant, told me, he said, I want you to stay here at the brigade main base today. I said, okay. So a grunt, an infantryman, had been back. After 10 months, they bring you out of the field and back to the brigade main base. So he rode shotgun. They never made it out there. The truck got blown to smithereens. That bothered me for a long time, and I never told Jane what had happened. She and I were, at that time, she was in Winthrop, and we were, but you took your hands, I don't care what you did there, something was always there. You had to be suspicious of it. We had Vietnamese girls who did our laundry, cleaned up, we did our own cooking, we had, but then we had the outdoor latrines, and you had to be careful there when you went to those, because sometimes the Vietnamese did all the cleaning, all the pots, plus you had to burn all the sewage. And you sometimes didn't know whether to trust them or not. In that picture I just showed you of the boy now, we were down in the Pineapple region, which is below South Saigon. And one night, that was my first time out there, and we spent 2 weeks out there, and all of a sudden I heard these blood-curdling cries. And I looked at him, I said, Wayne, what was that? He said, the South Koreans just caught a bunch of North Koreans who were fighting with the NVA and are torturing them. Oliver, I had never heard anything in my born days. So, I don't even know how it was so scary. It was so, it just made the cold chills running, because this is, regardless of your enemy or not, it's a human body you're torturing. And, you and I both look here, you pinch yourself real hard, it hurts. And then we couldn't go to the south anymore. We all went up to NVA, so we went up north. We started fighting the Army, and the NVA Army was a very elite group of people.
That's to be specific, that's the North Vietnamese.
South Vietnamese was jungle fighting, so forth and so on. And also, and I know you've noticed it, but we lost 58, almost 60,000 people in that war. And a lot of us are still dying because of Agent Orange. And you look up that and see what it is. It was
that's a great segue. Agent Orange, even whenever you were there, they were using Agent Orange. Right?
And everybody is affected by it somehow, some way, because of the way the wind blows, so forth and so on. And one of my friends came back, and they had a child, but they finally decided that something from his Agent Orange affected that child. The list used to be this long. Now the list is that long. And plus, my brother was a smoker, but he also died of Agent Orange 22 years ago at 58 years old. So,
Agent Orange was one of the worst things that we did environmentally there.
Yes.
And even today in the Vietnamese rice fields, they test every part of it, and there is still almost a 20% higher concentration than human life should be able to live. Do you think that we shouldn't have done Agent Orange, or do you think that was just like Teflon? We kind of didn't know until we knew.
Well, I might have told you this before, but when, as I said, we were brigade main base, last one up Highway 1, and the sergeant over there one time told me, I'm going to show you this picture when I got it. And here's a picture over there, and all this foliage, trees, so forth. Oh, he said, look out that window now. There wasn't one thing out there. When you sprayed it, it killed every cotton picking thing in this path. And you think about that. See, Monsanto manufactured that. And if it killed plants like that so deadly, what was the effect it had on a human being? Animals, anything. And that right now they cannot test you for Agent Orange. They watch you. I go once a year to the VA in Spartanburg to be checked. You know, like I was healthy as a horse. But when you start, because diabetes, you know, just about anything you can think of, if you start having issues. One of my best friends, he started having some issues, so he went over there and they told him that you have some effects possibly from Agent Orange. And so he's my age, and you know, at 77 years old, you're just thinking about how much longer you got to live here. So
yeah, then that's
and one other thing too. We did have we had an old slab over there that somehow we got basketball court nets and set them up for the guys when they came back, and we had stand down, which was when the guys from the field came in, and when they came in, the cooks, everything, and you know, we had steaks. I mean, you know, you get flown in on an Air Force transport plane into the for supplies, and we gave them a party, and you got the beer at Budweiser's, Blue Ribbons, just in a certain order, and what you did, you bought up all the Budweiser and Blue Ribbons and Miller Lights first, or well, Millers at that time. You bought those up first, because then getting you out of the hands of the cheap beer, and we drank a lot of beer.
yeah.
But because there was no such thing as sweet tea over there, for one thing. But we gave them a big party, and the engineers would rig up hot showers, because we took showers in the afternoon after the sun heated
the passive
tower,
water heaters.
Tower up,
yeah.
you know, heated the tower up, and well, I was able to bathe, sure, you know, but it's just you're not, I mean, you're 1,000 miles away from home, and you felt lonely.
And so your base, it was an American base, but it was in North Vietnam, as far away from anyone you could get to, right?
Well, we were still in South Vietnam,
Yeah.
but we were farthest brigade main base up, going towards north.
Okay, so you were almost near the demilitarized zone, almost.
Correct. And it's
Okay.
you know, you just didn't really trust anybody. I mean, I'm sorry. One of my best friends from Arizona, that way, he finally, I can't find him anymore. He doesn't commute with me anymore. And it's just one of those things that you have to learn to live with. I do have one from Hawaii. He and I still communicate 55 years later. I mean, that's, and one of my best friends that lives right down here, her mother's Hawaiian from World War II. So when she called him to help her look at for her uncles, and when they had all the wildfires 2 years ago down there. So he and I still communicate, and a couple others not as much as Nelson. Nelson was Chinese Hawaiian, but he is just a good guy.
So do you think that being, I hate to use this term, a band of brothers across seas, do you think that kind of made the base more tight-knit?
Made what?
Made the base more tight-knit?
Yeah, and see, you never knew what was going to happen from day to day. Now, and I think I might have told you this, but I was walking from the brigade main base to headquarters, and I heard this guy say, Freddie Harmon. I don't know nobody over here. It was John Wilkins from Patrick, coacher down that way. And he is a year younger than I am. And so I looked, John, you had no idea that he was in the same unit as I was. So we went to the NCO club that night, had a few beers to drink and have a good time. But it was just, we were a band of brothers. When we left there, we didn't want to have a cotton picking thing to do with Vietnam. We didn't get rats rearing about it. But when I went to Vietnam War in when it was
TC?
the late in '90s.
Mhm.
I cried like a baby. I wouldn't go down there because my best friend's name was on there, and so it was hard. But we're old and we start learning. See, National Vietnam Day was March 3rd, 29th. How much did you hear about it? Nothing.
And now they don't call it Saigon anymore. They call it Ho Chi Minh City.
How much you want to talk about more over there? Because I got another story to tell you in a minute.
So you covered pretty much almost all my questions. It's truly great. You really given a really good picture. I just have a few questions. You talked about Chu Hoi, or open arms, or what they also called Americanization of the Vietnamese, right? So when those people, when the people came over on the open arms, and you talked about not being able to trust them, was that a theme over there? You know, your back is never against a wall because there's always a jungle.
You was just leery. There was a guy, Sergeant Bennett from Georgia. He was the S4 clerk, which that's supply sergeant. He and I were sitting there one day, and this guy had come back for his second tour over there. And James got a friend did 3 tours over there, and but we're sitting there all of a sudden, bam, bam. What the hell happened? We went back there. The guy was cleaning his weapon. He shot himself in the foot. And I said, no, you realize you did not want to be over here. Now, M16 rifle, or M16 bullet, when it comes out, it goes, most bullets go around like this. M16 tumbles. And when he hits, it splats. His foot was a mess. So I ran down and got Ron McNeil, my buddy, at the medics. I said, you got to come up here real quick. It was just because you had to be there a whole year, even though some of the World War II veterans, my old friend, when I was growing up, said, I don't remember, I didn't think I was ever coming home because I was gone for 3 years. But it's those things that you, and as I may have told you, see, my mother died when I turned 21. I was at Fort Bragg, my birthday. The Red Cross called me and said, your mother's dying. I was getting ready to go to Vietnam. And so I got delayed, but then, you know, those are the things that impact your life. You know, I was a mama's boy. And for me to go over there and my mother not being alive and not being able to write to me, Daddy couldn't write with a flip, he's like me. But I did have a girl I was dating that used to write to me periodically, so. But yeah, it's those things like that and like I said, my brother was very protective of me and what he went through. And within a distance here of 3 blocks, there was 1, 2, 3 of my friends that got killed. And then my very best friend, which I'll tell you in a little bit about that.
So what about, we've talked about deaths in battle. What about deaths from everything else? From like you said, getting shot in the foot to drugs and over-intoxication. Was it really a drug problem when you was in Vietnam?
They could get it. It was, in our unit, was that it just wasn't a thing. But in some of the other companies, you hear about these things. But we were a pretty tight company, and you know, most of you're not going to do that junk because of being a comrade and that guy's next to you. But there was a lot of junk too. One of my friends was a medic, and he had to drive out to the base. We went through a little VC village. He had a child coming across the road, and he killed it. Well, the S1 lieutenant officer swarmed down to make him hang for that. Well, his daddy was a retired Air Force, and Cy Annington, no, I can't remember his name. He helped him. He said, Fred, I'm in trouble. They tried to hang him for him hitting that little kid. But when you went through a VC village or village, they came out to the Jeeps, the 3/4 ton, and they were trying to get something off it. And it was horrible because you didn't want to hit one of those little kids. Yeah. Or you could see somebody, you could ride somewhere and you see somebody taking a bath in the creek. It's just, they think the South was backwards. You go over there and it was totally backwards. But one of the good things about this today, I'm a stickler for buying things from China but Vietnam makes a lot of product now. And so I walk and shoes a lot, and if it's from Vietnam, I'll buy it. Because of I feel compelled to be with those people. If you sit there a whole year with those people, you learn to love them as your brother, sister, whatever, and you make friends with them. Because the Viet Cong didn't like the Vietnamese, the South Vietnamese.
So that when you say they didn't like the South Vietnamese, do you mean like how Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot in Cambodia was doing almost ethnic cleansings? Like they didn't like them, they thought they were racist against them?
Well, it's just almost like the Civil War we had here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's just, it's something we should never got involved with. But also, who was President Nixon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He should have kept his 2 cents worth out of it. And because Ho Chi Minh wrote a book, he said, the Americans, we were ready to give up, but then we pulled out. And I got home in 70, and I'd actually applied for Officers Canada School and got accepted, but then got it because of the de-escalation of the war.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, we could have won it. We could have won the thing easily. I mean,
so you think that we could have won the war? Do you think we should have stayed longer than? Do you think we should have stayed longer even after Nixon's bombing campaign to bomb them to the conference table didn't work?
I'm glad we got out of it for everybody's concern, because it was something we should never got involved in. Because look at what the French did. Yeah.
And that was what I wanted to ask you about. The French left before us.
Yeah. And so, and they were before us. And I've talked to people, older people, and they said it was a waste. We should just let them do what they want to and get out of it. You see, they were, I had a friend over from Australia. They were Australian groups. And there were some National Guard units over there. Very few, but a lot of them. Most of us drafted because I joined, like I said, I was the regular Army. I joined myself. But there was just a lot of things. Oh, and then one other thing I was going to tell you. There was an artillery officer was made into an infantry officer. Lieutenant McNeil?
Uh-huh.
And he had got hurt, and he was at the brigade main base. They didn't want him back out in the field because he was not an infantry officer. He was made into from being an artillery officer.
Mm-hmm.
And so my headquarters company was here on the corner, and A company down the line, BC. And I walked on the duck walk behind the offices. I had to go down to the supply tent down there. And I said, what is that smell? You smell things all the time. It smelled horrible. And I looked and I said, what? I jumped back again. There was a grenade with a rubber band, the pin pulled and a rubber band wrapped around it, and a cigarette smoldering next to it underneath his hooch.
As a fuse.
Yeah, the Lieutenant McNeil's hooch where he slept. I jerked open that door. I said, Lieutenant, get your butt out of there right now. And, again, ran trying to ring up the commo. Because I wasn't going to reach in there and get it, because, And so, fortunately, the demolition team got up here quickly enough. It would have not affected me, but it could have blown him to smithereens.
And that was in the base?
That
was inside of your base?
That was inside. My theory is that there were a lot of those grunts in A Company who did not want him back out in the field as an infantry officer when he was an artillery officer. Mm. You think about that. Mm. Yeah.
I'll think about it. So whenever you were in Vietnam, did you encounter anything else like that's, for me, that's bomb making in 1960 101, but did you encounter anything else like tripwires or punji traps or booby traps or mines?
Oh, there. Now, we, as I said, our biggest fear every day was rocket attacks. Mm-hmm. When a rocket goes out, it goes swoosh. Mm-hmm. The rocket comes in, you know it, and you can hit it. I slept at the orderly room, but one night I slept over in the barracks, which is a 2-story barracks built by civilians years ago, and we got hit. Mm-hmm. I come flying out of that barracks, and we were up top. I caught my arm on the railing. I I was going to break it because you had to run the bunker. But the thing here was you had to be careful. I was pulling a CQ duty when somebody had the main headquarters called out to each company. You had to check with them every half an hour on the hour. And we got hit one day, and it was like early in the morning. And I was in the S1 building, and the bunker behind there. I took off and ran. I hit that door. Guess what? It didn't open. I ran back and hit it again. It opened. Somebody had put a piece of wood across the door on the outside, and I wish if I could ever found out who did that, because if we'd got hit, I'd been dead. But fortunately, I hit it hard enough the second time at 21 years old, not much bigger than I am now, and I splintered that wood, and see, that had to be investigated. And it was something constantly all the time. But we got a little bit of humor, can I throw it? Lieutenant Colonel Vassey from Gaffney, Daddy had sent me a letter and said, Colonel Vassey's coming by to see you. Because anybody that was from Gaffney or he knew, he loved to come and visit him. So, and I said, no, he was a full bird colonel, excuse me, I take it back. And that's an Eagle. And so he came over to the office, and he was driving his driver. He came in, he knocked on the door, and he said, Specialist Harmon. I jumped up, I said, Colonel Vassey? Yes. He came and he sat on the corner of my desk. And he said, we were sitting there talking because my daddy and mama were good friends with him. They grew up with him. And he said, I said, yes, sir, I can talk. Well, about that time, Top come walking in. He said, Troop, get your ass off that table. Colonel Vassey stood up. Camouflage. Top threw his hand up and saluted it. And Colonel Vassey said, at ease, Top. You good. So Top walked out. He came back in later after Colonel Vassey left. And he said, why the hell did you not tell me? I said, you didn't give me a damn chance, Top. I said, everybody knew they weren't going to sit on that desk because of that, But it was just, everybody, and when you got down to 100 days, everybody had a short-timer's calendar. And you marked it off,
Can't wait to go home.
I can't remember what I had, because I had a snoopy one when I got back, back at Fort Bragg. And what else you got? Any more questions?
No.
Okay. And then so the strange thing about this, see, I went to the military on March the 20th, 1969, 68, excuse me. I went to Vietnam on March the 19th, 1970. No, 69. I got back from Vietnam in 1970 on March the 18th. I got out of the military on March the 19th, 1971. And it was just, March was just, it's a strange thing. So we had one of the first black generals in Vietnam. I just forgot his name. And Davison, General Davison. And he went to OPO operations in D.C. You could write him. I was supposed to go to Fort Jackson. I didn't want to go to Jackson. And he had changed the order. And so I wanted to go back to Fort Bragg. Now it's 3.5 hours drive from here. But I'd already done a year, it didn't make any difference. So when I got back to Bragg, and my cousin and one of my line captain in Vietnam, Captain Yacovelli, was the captain in the 573rd Personnel Service Company. I was supposed to go to an airborne unit. I didn't want to do it. They changed my Department of Orders, Army orders. So I wound up working with 573rd Personnel. So you processed out 573rd, except for the airborne and 82nd Airborne and the Green Berets, and you processed in. And when I processed in, I walked in the door and I said, Phil Justice from North Carolina, he was in my company when we left. So anyhow, But and so I went back and worked for Sergeant Major Vassy, I think it was, whatever, I can't remember. But it was it's just the way those things happen like that. So I'm back at Fort Bragg, and as I mentioned to you earlier, I was at Fort Bragg when the Red Cross called me and told me my mother was dying. I had to come home. I was back at Fort Bragg, and the desk sergeant said, "Harmon, you got a call from the Red Cross." Now, Oliver, I just sat there, and I'm 22 years old now. My stomach hit rock bottom. And I said, so I went and picked it. The Sossman family has requested you to go to Dover, Delaware to pick up their son's body, my best friend. He and I were blood brothers. We cut ourselves when we were in the 10th, 11th grade. And they say that a Claymore mine has a mine that's about this long. It says front and back. And you stick blasting caps in it with a detonator cord. Well, they say the static electricity from his body set it off. I find that hard to believe, but we don't know what happened. So I had to go to D.C. and then Dover, Delaware, escort his body back home to Gaffney, South Carolina, April the 16th, 1970. And that is probably one of the hardest things I ever did in my life. We flew into Charlotte, and then Shuford Hatch Funeral Home, Frank and Larry met me at the state line. We brought the body home. And it's the strangest thing about it was that if I can find it right. That's he's still living. That's Ed right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they were at China Beach.
Yeah.
And they and Billy on the left was sitting there at China. It's an in-house R&R. And the guy came up to me and said, "Homie, you got a homie from South Carolina." He said, "What?" And Billy turned around and it was Ed. He said, "Fred, I didn't know what to do. I just was speechless." And they had the 3-day R&R, and then 3 days later, Ed gets killed. Those things never leave your mind. One day I'll print out the article that I have on Ed, and Tommy Martin, a friend of ours, wrote an article about us. And I put it on Facebook every year at the same time. And Cody Sossman, that runs the Gaffney Ledger, they're cousins. And he always called me and said, "You doing okay today?" The best I can. So that's 54 years ago. I've been home 55 years this year, so and it just seemed like that. So, but yeah.
Well, you answered just about everything I had, from Viet Cong to open arms to Nixon to could we have won. But I guess I just have one more question for you. Do you think that it's possible for someone to be a non-combat veteran in Vietnam?
I have a Marine buddy, and he said there's no such thing as a non-combat veteran from Vietnam. The percentage rate for them, and I'm a retired analyst, and so numbers are one of my things. The percentage was a lot higher for them, but you still could get killed right at the Brigade base. It didn't make any difference where you were in Southeast Asia. Anywhere in that area, you could get killed. We're just fortunate that we didn't. But just like I said, and here's another, I forgot the guy's name, but he had came back and he was ready to depart. And he went to he was going to go over, but the plane was full. The Freedom Bird was full. So he came back. He spent the night on the helipad. Well, guess what happened? The helipad got rocketed. Guess who got killed? The day he was supposed to leave because he couldn't get on a plane. That was one of the hardest things to do, is write up on. And I had to write these things on morning report and turn the records in. S1, which is your I can't remember.
Commanding officer.
Yeah, information. Yeah, and so I had to tell him, "Oh, Joe Blow got killed," and then it's and like one of the hardest things when I had to fold the flag for and give to his mother. You go out to Oakland, you know where Oakland Cemetery is. Mm-hmm. Go out on the far side and go down the last road. Not the road next to the house, but the last road in the cemetery towards the college. And you get down to the bottom of the hill and look like it'll say Edward DeCamp Sossman. And look at that. So my phone went out because we got to drive easily for our grandson.
That's totally fine. That was great. I'm gonna stop it right now. I really thank you for doing this.